Good day. This is the 7th video tutorial on the Designer program. In today's lesson, we will build strategies and show how you can compare the strategy testing results. The first strategy will be based on the Bollinger indicator. This indicator is composite, that is, it consists of several parts. The strategy meaning is that if the candle crosses the upper Bollinger curve, then we buy. If the candle crosses the lower Bollinger curve, then we sell. To build a strategy, we will need to get the value of the upper and lower Bollinger curves. This can be done using the converter cube, which will receive the given values from the indicator cube. To get the closing price, we also use the converter cube, which gets it from the candle cube. In order for trades to pass, two conditions must be met. The candle crosses one of the curves, and so that the current trade has the opposite direction of the previous one. That is, if we buy, then the previous trade must be a sale. This will be implemented by building a schema in which the values of the previous and current trades will be compared. Let's start building our strategy. Select the cube's variable, candles, and chart panel and connect them. To determine the indicator value, select the indicator cube and set the Bollinger value in its settings. The cube now calculates the Bollinger indicator value by receiving data from the candle cube. To get the closing price, we will use the converter cube, which will get it from the candle cube. To do this, connect it to the candle cube and select the property value in its settings, closing price. Then we can use this value to compare and execute trades. In fact, the strategy consists of two directions, buy and sell. In order to simplify the understanding of the schema building, we will build it in stages. Let's start with a buy direction. The strategy buys if the candle crosses the upper curve of the Bollinger indicator. Accordingly, its value is greater than the indicator value. To do this, you need to determine the upper indicator curve value and compare it with the value of the closing price. Select the converter cube, with which we can determine the upper curve value from the indicator cube. Connect the cubes and in the converter settings specify the value, upper curve of the Bollinger indicator. Now the converter cube will receive and pass the upper indicator curve value. Select the comparison cube in order to compare the two obtained values, the candle value and the curve value. Now, if the candlestick crosses the upper curve of the Bollinger indicator, then a buy signal is sent. Connect the cubes and set the greater than sign in the comparison cube settings. Select an order registration cube, which will receive a signal to make a trade from the comparison cube. Connect the cubes. Connect the cube with the closing price cubes and the instrument cube. As before, select two variable cubes, by which we assign the value of the trade portfolio and volume. Connect them to the order registration cube. We need to understand that if a buy is made, then the next trade must be a sale, and vice versa. Accordingly, there should be a certain flag responsible for fixing the trade direction in digital form, which will override its value when trading conditions are met. Accordingly, assigning a buy value equal to 1 and a sell minus 1, a buy trade will be possible if the candle crosses the upper Bollinger curve and the flag value is minus 1. To do this, we need a schema in which the conditions of intersection of the candle and indicator values will be compared, and the condition of inequality of digital values of the trade's direction. To do this, select a variable cube and set it a value equal to 1. If the comparison condition is met, then the cube receives a signal from the comparison cube to pass value along the schema, to compare it with the digital value of the previous trade. In order to assign a cube that will receive the numerical value of the current trade, subject to conditions, select the variable cube and assign it a value equal to 0. This cube will serve as a flag. To fulfill two conditions of trade, it is necessary to compare the digital value of the current trade with flag value. To do this, select the comparison cube, connect the variable cubes with it. Now, if the condition is met where the candle crosses the upper curve of the indicator, then the variable cube gives a signal to pass to the comparison cube with the value 1. If the value is greater than the flag value, then the second condition is met. Remove the original link of the comparison cube and order registration cube. To signal the satisfaction of two conditions, select the logic cube, It will compare the fulfillment of both conditions and will send a signal to make a trade and a signal to overwrite the flag value. Now, if the first condition of the intersection of the candle and indicator values is met, then the true value is sent to the logic cube. If the potential order has a direction to buy and has a digital value of 1, and the previous one has a value less than 1, that is, the sale direction was or was not made, then the true value comes to the logic cube. In order to rewrite the flag value, it is necessary that the signal is true at the logic cube output. Select the variable cube, which will store the information about the trade and will send it by signal. A value of 1 for rewriting into the cube where our flag value is stored. To do this, assign the value 1 to the cube and connect it to the flag cube. Specify the logic AND operator in the logic cube. If the candle crosses the upper curve of the indicator and the previous trade has the opposite direction of the current, then the logic cube gives a signal to make a trade and to overwrite the current flag state. So, we have built the first branch for trade direction, buy. For the sales direction, the schema is built in the same way. The difference is that the candle value is less than the lower Bollinger curve value. Accordingly, the comparison cubes will have opposite signs, and the digital value of trade is -1. So, our strategy buys when the conditions of crossing the candle of the upper curve of indicator are met, and the condition of the previous trade had the opposite direction of the current one. The strategy sells when the candle crosses the lower value of the Bollinger curve, and the previous trade had the opposite direction of the current one. With that, after meeting the condition, the flag always records the digital value of the current trade. Let's rename our strategy and align the cubes for a more readable look. Select an instrument. Click on Start. So our strategy is trading. Trades are made. They can be viewed on the Trades and Orders tab. Let's clear the screen and create a second strategy. Let's build a second strategy based on the MACD indicator. The strategy meaning is as follows. If the MACD curve changes its sign from minus to plus, then we buy. If vice versa, then we sell. Let's take cubes, variable, candles, and chart panel. As in previous strategies, connect them. In order to determine the MACD indicator value, select the indicator cube and connect it to the candle cube. After that, the indicator cube will begin to receive a value from the candle cube. Specify the MACD value in the indicator cube settings. You need to find out the sign of the previous and current indicator values. Select a previous value cube. If the signs are opposite, then the strategy will trade in one of the directions. Connect the previous value cubes and the indicator. Now the cube will store and pass the previous indicator value. To find out the indicator value sign, compare its value with 0. If more than 0, then positive. If less, negative. Select the variable cube and set the numerical value to 0 in the settings. Now, by comparing the previous value and variable cubes with a value of 0, you can find out the sign. Connect the variable cube with the candles cube via trigger so that a signal is received to pass the value along to the schema. For comparison, we need 2 comparison cubes. Select comparison cubes from the palette. Connect the previous value and variable cubes to the comparison cube. In the settings of the first comparison cube, set the sign greater, that is, the previous value is greater than 0. So when the condition is met, the output value will be true. Similarly, connect the cubes with the second comparison cube. And set in it a sign less if the previous value is negative. That is, it is less than 0. The output will be true. Similarly, we need to check the sign of the current indicator value and compare it with the sign of the previous value so that one of the strategy conditions is fulfilled. To set the sign of the current value, select the comparison cubes. And in the same way as the previous value cube, we set the conditions for determining the sign. If the current value of indicator is greater than the upper curve value, then it is positive. If the current value of indicator is less than the lower curve value, then it is negative. To fulfill the conditions for making a trade, you must use the logic cube. Select a logic cube and connect the comparison cubes. Let the previous indicator value be greater than 0. To check the fulfillment of both conditions, in the cube settings we specify the logical operator AND. If both conditions are true, then the output will be true, and we sell. Select Order Registration Cube. Connect the logic cube with the order registration cube via a trigger. If the logic cube output is true, then the order registration cube will trade in the direction specified in the settings. Set in the settings the trade direction, sell. If the true value comes to the trigger, then we sell. Similarly, we do for the condition. When the previous value is less than 0 and the current value is greater than 0, then the logic cube directs the true value to the trigger of the order registration cube. Trade direction in which buy is set. As in the previous strategy, select 2 variable cubes. For one, we assign the trade volume equal to 1. The second will be assigned the portfolio value, simulator. Connect all sockets. In the settings of order registration cubes, we specify the market price, that is, the price will be market. By ticking the appropriate box, select the Strategy Trades cube, and we will display them on the chart panel. Set up the period for which we test the strategy. Select the instrument for which we test the strategy. And click on the Start button. On the candle chart that appears, you can see trades based on our strategy. The order window contains all orders that took place during the selected period. The Trades window contains trades with a description of their conditions. On the Profit and Loss chart, it can be seen that the strategy is trading unstably, either at a loss or at a profit. Therefore, it requires adjustment. To visually compare the results with the previous strategy, we will do the following. Refresh the strategy, change its name, and change the period. Let's set the period the same as that of the first strategy in order to compare statistics. Comparison of the results of strategies is necessary in order to understand which of them is the most optimal for work. The comparison is carried out using various methods, comparing different test indicators. For example, compare the number of profitable and unprofitable trades, the drawdown amount, the recovery factor, and other indicators depending on the trader's analysis method. Let's start the strategy. For the convenience of comparing the result of testing different strategies, the program provides the ability to export statistics data to a file. To do this, go to the Statistics tab and right-click. In the menu that appears, select the Export item. Specify the path and file name. After saving, the program will offer to view the file while clicking No. Select a strategy based on the Bollinger indicator and run it. Specify the instrument and click on Start. Similarly, go to the Statistics tab and save the test results. Open saved files for visual comparison of test results. This method makes it possible to simplify the task of choosing a strategy, as well as analyzing and editing. Comparison can be carried out in the program. For this, it is necessary to combine the windows with the test results, arranging the area as shown on the screen by dragging it. As then, you can compare the results of strategies by comparing the values of the test results. For example, it can be seen that the maximum profit for the MACD strategy is greater than the Bollinger strategy. With that, the maximum drawdown for the Bollinger strategy is less than for the MACD. The recovery factor of strategies is negative, which means the maximum drawdown exceeds the profit. You can also see which strategy has more profitable and loss-making trades. To analyze trades, there is a possibility of their export. To do this, in the same way as for exporting strategy results, you need to right-click on the Trades window. Select the desired directory and specify the file name. Then you can compare the results saved in the files. That's all. Thanks. Goodbye.